Hi, everybody. Thanks for attending today's webinar, Expect More from Your Software. It's being presented by Scott McDougall, the president at Cornerstone Billing Solutions. My name is Jason Stegent. I'll be your moderator for today's session. A few housekeeping notes before we get started so everybody can make the most of today's experience. Today's webinar with Q&A shouldn't last longer than 40 minutes. I believe the presentation is going to be around 30 minutes. We're then going to end with a Q&A, which will be 10 minutes, maybe a few minutes more, taking as many questions as possible from today's attendees. Regarding the Q&A, you'll see the Q&A field under the speaker box. Simply type in your questions, click submit. We'll get to as many of them as we possibly can. If we can't get to all of them, we'll reach out offline and answer any questions that went unanswered. We are recording today's session, so if you didn't have a chance to join us live today, no worries. You'll get a link to the on-demand version within the next 24 hours. So you'll receive an email from us. So if you are attending, you'll be able to reinforce what you learned. If you missed it, you'll be able to see what you missed. So be on the lookout for an email no later than tomorrow with access to the on-demand version. A few things about the environment you're in. There is no dial-in option for attendees. You're going to be hearing this through your PC speakers or through your mobile device. If the audio is not loud enough for you, it should be, but if it's not, make sure that the volume on your PC speakers are up. The media player automatically defaults to about 75%. If it's still not loud enough for you, or if you're in a cubicle-based environment, we always recommend headphones. One of the things that we hear often is, hey, can I view the slide deck in full screen mode? Absolutely. All the windows have min-max options, so if you want to view the slide deck in full screen mode, just enlarge it, and boom, you're off. And that goes for every single window within the environment. At the bottom as well, you'll see a number of different icons that enable you to do a number of different things. You can email out of this environment, so if you have any folks that you believe would get value out of today's session, go ahead and email them a link to the registration and attendee player panel. If you want to share this through social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and a variety of others, you can do that. If you have any questions from a technical perspective, you'll see the FAQ window that should answer all of your questions. And if you have anything that you feel needs to be helped by a support agent, there's a support icon there. Just click on that, type in any questions or any comments you have, and you'll have a support agent to take care of any issues you might be faced with. But I believe everybody should be issue-free. It's going to be a great session. What I'd like to do now is I'm going to hand the floor over to Scott McDougall. Again, he's the founder and president of Cornerstone Billing Solutions. Scott's going to run through today's session for about 30 minutes and then hand it back over to me for the Q&A portion. But without further ado, Scott, take it away.
Hey, Jason, thanks very much. Welcome, everybody. We're talking software today. As we all know, software can be super frustrating, exasperating, and it also really can be and should be an absolutely indispensable tool to help you run your business better. So we've been at this for about 20 years. My passion is to help our security companies make things simpler on their end, and we'll get into a little bit more about what that means. But we've built our business strictly in the security services business. This is the only industry we're in, and we're proud of the team that we've been able to create over those 20 years. You'll notice a Wizard of Oz theme in some of the slides today, and it will help to drive home a few of the points. As you think back to the movie, there's the scene where Dorothy and the Scarecrow happened upon the Tin Man in the woods. He had been there a while. He was pretty much rusted solid. He was able to move his mouth just enough to squeak out two words. Not sure if you remember what those two words were. He said, oil can. And I thought that was a good metaphor for software. Good software is an oil can. It loosens things up. It makes your company more agile. It really helps your work flow. In this industry, these days, there are plenty of options. So I've outlined some of those options, and I've put them into groups. So in the business we do, the ubiquitous software package is QuickBooks. QuickBooks is used by probably 90–95% of our security companies. Peachtree is another option in the general accounting category. As far as industry specialized software goes, we are one. There's MicroKey, there's Sedona, and there are a few others that some of you folks may use. As far as cross-industry software, these are companies where they develop their software in other industries and decided to try to migrate it to the security services business. I've listed a couple of companies here. There are also some special purpose software tools some of you may use. D-Tools is one that's really a design program for kind of high-tech, elaborate systems, and BidMagic is another one that is really geared toward quoting, fancy quotes. And there are some other very large companies like Service CEO that have what I call service management software that they sell to lots and lots of different industries. So which of these is right for my company? It's hard to answer that, and it really depends on where you have, where you are, your size, the friction you're encountering day to day, the type of work you do, the type of jobs you do, and several other factors. But I wanted to address this question. Is there a software land of Oz, a platform that makes things super easy, where everything just works? Spoiler alert, I'm afraid not. I wish there were, but every company is different. Every company has different friction. Every company has different needs. But as you evaluate the software you've got and software you might be getting in the future, this is kind of the triangle of what good software should offer, and it really should offer all three of these things. So good software should be helping you increase and or retain revenue, which is retaining customers. It should certainly save you time, and it should save you money. So I'm going to use in this presentation Cornerstone software. We're the most familiar with that to illustrate some of these points. That said, let's take a look at a customer record. So what you're looking at here is a screenshot of a typical customer screen. And I'm going to take a minute just to go through the sections of this screen. So top left, you've got name and address information, pretty typical stuff. To the top right, there's some specialized stuff. So you've got central station account number, a couple of them here. You've got, in this case, the central station, the panel type, code word. So more industry-specific information. Bottom section, you've got contact information, phone numbers, etc. And finally, you've got these icons. So what you see along the bottom really are kind of the key clicks that you need to make. If a customer calls in, you can look at this record and you can click on one of these buttons to take you to recurring charges, to invoices, service history, the more specialized things like the equipment list, what's installed at the customer site, calls and mailings, even zone lists and contact lists. So a lot of information really a click away, and that's the key. This design is really about helping our customers quickly answer questions if they're talking to a customer. And if you step back and look at this screen, what it also speaks to is kind of the classic use of a customer management software package, and that is as a repository for customer information, really a database. Everything about the customer is stored here. So in this day and age, in 2018, that is still important, but honestly, that's not good enough. Good software should really be doing far more than just providing you a database, a repository for customer information. So let's look at some of the things that in this day and age you should be expecting from good specialized software. The first one is probably the most exciting and probably where the software industry is going, and I know on our end really is both exciting and fairly expensive because it involves integration. So integration really means connecting our platform to somebody else's platform. And I'm going to give you two examples. We have lots of integrations, but I'm going to show you two. One simple, one more complex. So the simple one is shown here in a video, and this is a basic integration with the U.S. Postal Service. So what it does is when somebody enters a customer record, it connects to the U.S. Postal Service and it validates the address information. It brings in a standardized address and it gives you a zip +4 in most cases. That's not a huge deal, but it does ensure that the address you have in your system is a good address. And obviously, if you mail out, let's say, an invoice or some other notice, it increases likelihood of delivery. So the second example, far more complex. This is a central station integration where the software user enters a CSID number, top right, and then downloads contacts and zones as well as the basic customer record. So you'll see here the download, and you'll see once that's finished, just takes a few seconds, being able to open then the contact list, a couple of contacts, and open up a zone list showing the zones for that particular installation. So that is very powerful. Why is it important? Truly, with integrations to a central station, you're going to have everything in one place. You have all of the technical details about the system as we showed you here. And the other big advantage is if there's a service problem and you need to go out and fix something at the customer location, you can include something like the zone list on a service ticket to make the technician's job easier. They know what they're up against when they go out on that service call. Moving on beyond integrations, one of the key things we think good software should be giving you is audits, the ability to audit your processes. For example, in this case, our software has what's called a pre-billing audit report, and that allows either you or us to identify possible setup mistakes, setup errors. So if you look at this screen, this is just a summary of a much more detailed report, but it shows you see 1 through 8. It shows you 8 possible setup errors that can lead to billing mistakes, or it can just lead to missed billing completely. So as part of our services, what we do is we actually run this report for our customers prior to each recurring billing batch that we're doing for them. And we flag possible mistakes, so those mistakes can be fixed before batches actually run. So the end result of that is more accurate billing that ensures that 100% of what should be billed is actually billed. Good software should help you sell some stuff. So here's an example of that. This happens to be the back side of an invoice, a paper invoice. And it has a message, and that message is smarter security. So this is really a promotion of Alarm.com interactive services. So this is one of our customers. They basically sent us this mock-up, which I think came from Alarm.com with their logo on it. And they use this, they have us print this on the back side of the invoices, and it's a means for them to basically solicit an inbound call for somebody that says, hey, I saw that on TV, that app on my phone, that'd be really cool. How do I sign up for that? So it's a way to sell something very easily because you're sending the invoice out anyway. Why not print something on the back side? Likewise, this is the back side of an invoice. This solicits referrals, basically friends and neighbors. Let's say you've got a customer that gets this. They've got a next door neighbor. They know they're in the market for a security system. They can fill out the bottom and could end up being a new customer for our companies. Moving on, if your software includes quotes, pretty important to know what your margins are on your quotes. So in our case, the end of the quote creation process before the quote is actually sent out takes our users to this screen. And this screen is a very simple job costing on equipment and labor. So we think that's important because you need to know what your margins are. If you have a minimum target margin of 40%, let's say, you can see the overall margin on this job is a little bit below that. So you might need to adjust the pricing to make your target margin. So being able to quickly view the results of a quote before you make a quote mistake. Likewise, on the data that's entered in a quote, there's absolutely no reason you should have to re-enter any of that information. So in good software, there should be a means to transfer an accepted quote. So once the user clicks accept, that information is moved over to two things. First, a customer record. So you create a new customer record in the software without having to manually enter that information. Second, a service ticket is created, so it goes directly into a job, into the workflow, without any more data entry, because there's a lot of data in some of these quotes, a lot of parts and labor. So at this point, you should just be able to assign a technician, schedule a job, and move on with your life. Big, big time saver. This is one of our most popular tools, and I'm going to call this a triple threat tool. You'll see why in a second. This is a central station audit. So this is a means, if we're integrated with a central station, it's a means to quickly grab the file. So this is, you see I highlighted there the download of the open device list. So by clicking that little world there, it'll pull in the open device list. And from there, you can run the report. And again, over the years, we've found 5 different reasons why one list doesn't match up with another list. So we're really talking here about your billing list, which would be sitting in the Cornerstone system, and your central station list, which is residing at your central station. So this is basically a very quick way to match up those two lists. And the reason I call it a triple threat tool is, first of all, it obviously saves time because it's very quick to set up and run, especially with an integration with one of our central station partners. It saves money because you're likely going to find accounts that are canceled in billing but still active at the central station. So you don't want to be paying for those accounts. You can cancel those out with the central. And finally, it's going to find revenue because inevitably you're going to find at some point accounts that are not being billed or services that have been set up at the central station but are not being properly billed. So big, really money finder and money saver. Let's talk a little bit about processes. Collections is one of the kind of the dreaded processes that most of our companies and prospects that we talk with would really prefer not to do for a bunch of reasons. It's not fun to do. People avoid it. They don't want to call up somebody asking for money. We find, and we do some collections, that it's honestly one of the easier things that we do. It's one of the easier things because it's all process. We ended up building many years ago a software module that helped manage that process, and so made it for us very easy. Here's a screenshot from what we call a Billing Plus, which is our slow pay follow-up module, of one section. And what I like to know if I'm following a process is, okay, what did I do last and what do I do next? So you can see on this screen status. CL2, that's a shorthand for collection letter 2. So that tells me the last thing we did with this customer was sent them collection letter number 2. What do I do next? By just typing in call and then hitting refresh, you can pull up your list of calls. So I need to call my 30 to 60, my 15 to 30 different groups, and ask them to get current with their bills. So very much process oriented. Good software should really help you line up your processes and save you a lot of time. On the inventory module, this is an example of how you avoid basically technician downtime. Call it a go back. You really don't want to send a technician back to a site if you don't have to. And one of the things we decided to build in was show me where I'm short parts, and that's what this does. So I highlighted the to order where they're either out or they're below their minimum reorder quantity. So, but just by checking that box and refreshing, you can pull up your short list of accounts, of inventory items that you're underwater on. Either you're out or you don't have enough and you need to reorder. So having done that, of course, the next logical step would be to create a PO. So I want to order those parts, and you can see here there's a button that helps you do that quickly. So every good service management software should include a calendar, and what you're seeing now is a video of a simple, this is our calendar, but it's an easy drag and drop. So let's say somebody calls in sick. You want to be able to go to a calendar. It should be easy to look at, it should be color-coded, and if somebody's out sick today, you need to be able to drag and drop their appointments from one technician to the other. I'd say most calendars probably do have that capability these days, but it's a big time saver, and this was set up to be very visual, so you can look at it and pretty easily intuit, what you need to do. They say if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. And one of the key management metrics in security is attrition, cancellations. So in our software, when somebody cancels or closes an account, they get a prompt, and that prompt says, would you like to enter a cancel reason? Right there. In most cases, they do, because it takes 5 seconds to enter that. So they enter a cancel reason, and what that then allows them to do is to run a report, and the first page of that report is this pie chart. So you can see the cancellation reasons shown here. Some of these you can control, maybe bad service, unsatisfied, you see on the right-hand side, or some you can't control. Somebody moves, there's not much you can do about it. But at least there's data here to start to look at, and you get a sense for what's good, what's not good, what do we need to focus on fixing. With recurring revenue, kind of the name of the game in security services, you need to have an easy way to track your RMR, and QuickBooks just simply can't do this for you. Tracking RMR is really a feature of a specialized software package. So in this graph, it shows top line, green, which is growth, your growth rate. The bottom line, the red line, is attrition over the past, I think this is a 6-month chart. And then the blue line is the net of those two things. So you have at a glance kind of how are we doing, how fast are we growing, and you can see at the bottom right, we annualize these and basically give you your numbers. So this company is growing at about 20% a year. Their attrition is about 12% a year, net of 8%. Don't know if that's good, bad, or otherwise, but at least you have the data that you can then act on. There's a lot of detail behind this report, basically line by line detail, so you can go back and say, okay, what happened? Why did attrition go up this month or go down last month? When it comes to customer retention, one of the key things we found is you got to make it easy for them to pay. And many years ago, we put up our online payment portal called alarmpayments.com. And that basically meant that our customers didn't have to put up their own payment portal. They basically could use ours, and that portal connects directly to their subscribers' invoice detail. So somebody gets a paper bill, they go online. People sit in front of computers most of the time, so they can go online, go check the 2 boxes for the 2 open invoices in this case, and then they can proceed to a normal checkout process like you would at any online payment site. Communications tools. So one of the really rankling things about any business is losing customers because they don't know what you do or everything you do. So being able to pull up your customer list and find a subset of customers that may not have any kind of interactive service, in this case, like alarm.com, really critical. So being able to pull up the list, email them a notice, maybe something to educate them, make sure they know all of the services you offer beyond basic security, especially right now with Comcast, ADT, AT&T, and a whole bunch of other national companies trying to poach your customers. This is absolutely essential in whatever software customer management tool you've settled on. So don't settle. QuickBooks is an excellent package. We use QuickBooks for our own company accounting, but if I had a security company, I would not use QuickBooks to manage day-to-day customer accounts and customer service. It just doesn't have the things that will make it far more efficient to be able to deal with customer issues and some of the power, the integrations, and other things I just showed you. So good software, whether it's ours or somebody else's, will do all three of these things, and the triangle we talked about: increase revenue, save time, save money. So a little bit about Cornerstone. Some of you probably know us, have seen us at trade shows, seen some of our advertising, but for those of you who don't, we have a cloud-based platform, so accessible with an internet connection. As you saw, security industry software. Kind of our core service is billing and payment services. Get into that in just a second. Collection services, so that's first-party collections, slow pay follow-up. That's totally optional, but some of our customers use us to handle that for them. And then integration, several, a pretty long list, and counting. A few of them are shown here. The big thing that sets us apart versus a regular software company that sells you software or that rents you software in the cloud is that we do the work. And again, I'll get into that in just a second, but business is complicated. There's a lot to worry about day to day. You need to partner with companies that help you with some of the work. It's really tough to do everything yourself, to do everything in-house. And that's why we exist, and that's why payroll services exist. That's why monitoring companies exist. You need to spread the work, and good partners can help you do that, and we can be one of those. So as an example, if you take a dealer with 1,000 accounts, 500 invoices a month, call it about half of those paper invoices, and then a mix of credit card, ACH. What happens? As a billing agent, as a billing service behind the scenes for our companies, we obviously are running the recurring batches, and that's really step one. And it's kind of funny when companies come to us, they think about billing as just step one, running the bills. And I'll be honest, this is probably the easiest thing that we do of the many things that we do, because it's pretty discreet. It's run once a month, and it's more of a batch process. But it's just the very beginning of what you'll see is a pretty complicated and time-consuming process. So from that billing batch, there are some scheduled auto pays. So normally there's a batch of ACHs, EFTs, and credit card. And so we set those up depending on the customer preference on the 1st or the 15th of the month. And then on the 22nd of the month, we run, in this case, statements for those folks that haven't paid. So that's the scheduled batches. We run at least 3 times a week ad hoc credit card payments. So these are folks that go to alarmpayments.com, make a payment there, or maybe they call into your office, into the customer's office, and say, hey, I want to pay by credit card. So those are ad hoc batches, 12 to 14 of those a month. Same thing with EFTs. We run at least 4 of those a month. And finally, there are a bunch of checks coming in. So every business day, we have a batch of checks to handle and checks to post to the open invoices. So 20 plus of those. So if you look at this screen, starting with a lonely single invoice batch in March, in the month of April, we Cornerstone are responsible for 40 to 50 batches of payments, and we do all of the accounting, the check and payment clearing, merchant account clearing, and all the accounting related to that. So our customer has a much simpler job. Our dealers have basically a journal entry to make in QuickBooks or whatever their GL accounting software is. So assuming, let's say, 25,000 came in during the month in those 40 to 50 batches, really all they need to do is take that 25,000. They can run a simple report in our software to do the allocation of those monies, but among the various revenue buckets that you see here. So very simple relative to having to do all of that stuff in-house. Massive time saver for our companies. I'd say the second reason we're different, and you need to check us out, but we have a pretty remarkable reputation for first-class service. So we have a team of people that support our dealers, are really dedicated to our dealers and making our dealers' lives easier. And this is that team, and that team grows. We're actually got one more person on board since this was done. So why not do this in-house? All of our companies did this in-house before coming to us, almost all of them. Hopefully we've answered the question in this webinar, but it should be a more reliable process. You should be getting more revenue out of it because some of the things we can do with invoicing should be saving you money, and obviously it should be way simpler than what you've been doing. So it takes some courage to make a change. The easiest thing to do is nothing. The status quo is always the path of least resistance, but at some point, there's so much out there, hopefully you've seen it today, so much power in software that didn't exist even 5 years ago, that's going to make your life a lot easier and make a lot of the really difficult tasks way easier, things like a central station audit. So here's my contact information, and that's the end of the scheduled presentation. If there's anything we can do to help you, please, here's my phone, my email. Let us know if we can help in any way. And with that, I see there are a number of questions coming in. I'm going to turn it back over to Jason.
Thanks, Scott. Great presentation, just like I knew it would be. We had a number of questions coming in from the audience. I wanted to remind the audience members of a few things before we get into these questions. If you have any questions, we're going to be on here for another 10, 15 minutes. Would be happy to answer any questions that you haven't sent in yet. And again, we are recording today's session, so if you want to reinforce what you learned today, you can absolutely do that. We will be sending an email within the next 24 hours on how to access the on-demand version. If we missed you, well, you'll be able to see what you missed. So be on the lookout for that email sometime tomorrow. But without further ado, let's get into the questions for Scott. Scott, this first one is coming from Tammy. Tammy wants to know, Scott, if we set up a link from this software to our central station, is there a risk that data can be messed up?
Good question. If you don't have a solid process up front before you turn on the integration, yeah, you can corrupt a whole bunch of data, pretty quickly. So we go through a two-step process. One is before we turn on live communication with a central station, we clean up the CSID, central station ID numbers, to make sure they match on both sides. Second step is we do the same thing with the names. It's amazing how often somebody moved, the name is changed at billing, but for some reason doesn't get changed in the central station database. So we clean up both CSID and names. When everything matches and we're sure of that, work with our customers. At that point, we turn the communication on. So good question.
Great. This next one is from Bobby. Bobby wants to know, Scott, if you handle all those payment batches, what happens if our office, and he capitalized our office, needs the details behind either individual invoices or payments?
Okay. This system, the online system, think of it as a software package sitting on your local network. It's completely transparent. So all the detail that you would see in a software package is going to be available online. It's just a different place to go. So you can see every single invoice. You can reprint invoices, email invoices. You can run payment histories. You can see every single line item payment that's been processed. At the end of each month, we actually email out a complete cash receipts report to our customers, but that report can also be run anytime, online.
Okay, we got one coming from Anthony. Scott, Anthony is asking or saying we're using QuickBooks. Would we keep our customers both in your system and in QuickBooks?
We have companies that try to keep that use QuickBooks and try to keep lists in both places. In our opinion, since you can get your data anytime out of our system, it is most efficient, we feel, to just manage your customers day-to-day in our system. And really, it's not necessary to try to match everything in QuickBooks. It's just additional, duplicate data entry. So QuickBooks becomes the means for paying vendors, payroll processes possibly, and running financial reports.
Okay, great. This next one, right now we've got about 3 more that we're going to tackle. Again, if anybody has any questions, don't be shy. Send them in. We'll get to as many as we can. This one's coming from Shelley. Shelley says, we are nervous about keeping customer data in the cloud. How can we get our data if something goes wrong?
Okay. Great question, and the question you should ask anybody that provides cloud services. First, we've set up automated reports in our system to allow our customers to send themselves key account data, for example, customer lists, which include recurring details, etc., and those can be zipped and password protected. So for security, you don't want them to be sent out. They'd be sent to the owners typically, so that they have a local copy. Gives them a little bit of a comfort. They've got their data in case they can't get to our system. Our system is 24/7. Our uptime is 99.9995%. It's super high, maybe an hour or two for maintenance every year. We need to take the system down. But good question. We've also set up redundancy, and that's a key question for any cloud company. We have a hot backup server. What that means is it's there if something were to happen to our primary production server. The server our customers log into is available immediately. So we have never had to use it, knock on wood, but that one's ready to go. And we have remote backups as well. So we've never, in 20 years of doing this, lost 1 byte of data.
All right, that's great to know. We've got 2 more coming in. This one is coming from Syed, Syed wants to know, Scott, our software company makes us open a support ticket if we need help with something. How does your company, how does Cornerstone handle it?
Really good question. This is 2018. We believe in right now support. If you're stuck on something in the middle of your day, having to submit a support ticket to your software company, honestly, is just plain not good enough. We showed you the team a few slides ago. All but 2 of those team members are dealer-facing, so we're standing by ready to take phone calls. We also have a chat system, so if it's a short question, we found a lot of people just, they enter the chat, enter the question, and get it resolved in 15, 30 seconds. But really good question. You should really demand real-time, right now support from your software company. You shouldn't have to wait for help.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, we've got this one. This is coming from Tim. Tim wants to know, Scott, can our field techs log into your software and manage their work themselves?
Yeah, that is really one of the beauties and efficiencies that come with a cloud-based software package. It's really set up to be self-serve, so no need really to create a paper ticket. We still have customers that do that, but no need to do that. Everything is digital, so techs can, and every day they do close out lots of their tickets in our system. They can even put the parts, labor. Again, if the owners say, hey, we want our techs to do that, we will train them to do that. They can close out the tickets, and they can even take payment on the spot using alarmpayments.com. So you don't have to go chasing after receivables. Much, much more efficient.
Great. I think that's going to wrap it up. I think that's all. We had a few more questions coming in, but just for the sake of time, we'd like to get in and out in 40, 45 minutes, and we're right at that number. If Scott wasn't able to get to any of your questions that came in, he can respond to those offline. We've got your contact information. He'll shoot you an email, give you a call, and hopefully provide the answers that you're looking for. One more final reminder. We've recorded today's session. It'll be on demand within 24 hours. Be on the lookout for an email on how to access the on-demand version. If you have any peers, any other dealers in the space that you think would get a lot of value out of this, please pass this on to them. We'd love to get their thoughts on today's presentation. Be on the lookout also in the next week or so, or in the next few weeks, on the next Cornerstone Billing, alarmbills.com webinar. We're finalizing the topic for lack of a better term, still finalizing that. Should have it done in the next few weeks. So be on the lookout for that. It's going to be jam-packed with value just like this one was. But until then, again, my name's Jason Steegent. I really enjoyed today's session. Scott, thanks for your time. Looking forward to the next one.
My pleasure. Thanks, everybody, for attending, and get a hold of me if you have any questions, whether we're going to do business or not. I'm happy to field questions. I know quite a bit about this software stuff.
Awesome. Everybody have a great rest of the week.